Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If you aren't already, subscribe below, hit the bell so you can be notified whenever I post my next video. But let's just hop right into it today. Today I'm going to be building 4 sawhorses so I can start doing some projects throughout the house. 2 of them are just like the ones I'm sitting on now, just hardwood down for the garage, and then I want 2 for upstairs that are going to be covered with a cushion to keep them from scratching the finish of anything I'm working on. So let's hop right into it. So for today's project, we're gonna need a drill, a saw. If you have power tools and you wanna use them, a chop saw is gonna be best. But for today's project, I'm gonna be using a circular saw because I don't have a chop saw. If you're using power tools, some safety goggles, coffee because I need my caffeine, some exterior rated screws. Just in case I leave these outside and it rains, I want to make sure they're all covered and I don't have to worry about rusting on screws. So I'm just going to be using some leftover deck screws that are 2.5 inches long because that's what I have sitting around the house. Something to draw a straight line with because I am incapable of drawing a straight line. A tape measure and some drill bits. So you guys are going to need 5 2x4s for every 2 sawhorses you need. So for today's project, I'm going to use a total of 10 2x4s. These ones have already been cut clearly. So for each set of 2x4s, so for every 5 2x4s, you need to cut 4 boards at 32 inches and 10 boards at 30 inches. So as you can see here, I've got 5 at 30 inches left, 2 at 32 inches left, and I've got a fully made sawhorse, nice and sturdy behind me, already made to show you guys what it's going to look like at the end. And then off camera here, I've got 5 more 2x4s that I'm going to chop up the size and get started. So one thing to keep in mind is because some of these are going to be used for legs, it is really imperative that you get them the exact same size, as close as humanly possible. A little bit of variance isn't going to, create a wobbly sawhorse, but the best way to make this happen is measure for your first board, cut your first board, and use this board as your template. So you're going to lay this on top of the 2x4, score a line, and then cut it, and keep doing that for the 30 inches as well as the 32 inches. That way you get boards that are the exact same size and it'll make it come together a lot better. A lot of these boards here are boards that I removed from a closet upstairs, so just ignore all the random nail marks and holes because they're just reused boards. I didn't want to buy new boards for this because it doesn't affect what we're using it for. So let's go ahead, let's start assembling this guy since I've already got this one cut, and then we'll come back and cut that board. The first step to this is going to be taking your 32 inch board, laying it flat on top of this, and then you're going to take one of the 30 inch boards and you're going to create an I-beam with it. And then we'll take the last board here and place it on top like this. Right? So what we're going to do now is we got to figure out where the center point of each of these boards is. So basically what we're going to want to do is come down 1 inch, draw a line, and then find the center of the board and draw a line. And wherever those lines meet is where the center of this board should be whenever we screw it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that up. Now one thing to remember about a 2x4 board is it's not actually 4 inches across. I know, confusing why I call it a 2x4. It's because of the construction practices. But if you want to go ahead and take a quick look. So half of 3 1/4 is going to be 1 5/8. So we're going to make a mark at 1 5/8. And then we're going to want to do the same thing on the other side. So just to show you really quick what we did. We measured the 1 inch line. There's a little nail mark that goes across. I don't know if you guys can see that. And then I measured the center of the board, put a little plus, and that's where the center of that other board is going to go. And same thing on the other side. So let's go ahead and mark this long board. This one's a lot easier because it's only right in the center of the board we need. We don't need to figure out all the other spots. So with this, we're going to measure it. And a 2x4 is actually 1.5 inches wide. So we're going to need to go right at 3/4 of an inch and make our mark. Same thing on the other end. when we go to line it up, you're going to line it up like that. Get the little dot there. Line it up. And then on the other end, line it up. And that's how we're going to want to do it. And then we're going to want to put 3 screws. One here, and one here at the center of the board. All right, so now I've got those 3 screws pre-drilled. They don't quite go all the way through. And then we're gonna line this up on the ground in front of us. And what you're gonna wanna do is start on one side, line up this side first, and go ahead and drill that screw in. All right, with that screw drilled in, we're gonna go to the other end and double check that line to make sure it's still pretty close and line it up the rest of the way. And then once you line it up, screw it down in. With that step complete, as you can see, there's a little bit of a warp to the board, so there's a little bit of a gap. That won't affect anything. And we've got the first part of our I-beam started. So we're gonna flip this over on the ground with that 2x4 face facing down. And we're gonna grab the next board. So because this one's gonna be the top, this actually matters. So what you wanna do is you wanna look at both sides of the board and figure out which side's the nicest board side. So I got this knot here and this like junk here and a bunch of old nail marks, where this side looks a lot cleaner. So we're gonna go ahead and use this board as the top side. And again, we're gonna wanna take the marker and the tape measure and measure those things. So 1 5/8, 1 5/8, nice and center of the board. And then we're just gonna do the same thing on this I-beam. So really quick, I just wanted to let you guys know, is this the easiest way? No. The best way to do this would be to throw some clamps on this, but my goal is to show you that you can do any of these DIY projects with the minimal amount of tools. That's why I'm not breaking out all these expensive tools. I really want to show you that anything can be accomplished with a little bit of ingenuity and as well as just some basic power tools that everybody drill these holes because I'm not clamping it. If you were going to go ahead and clamp this, you wouldn't need to pre-drill these holes. You could just quickly do it. But because I'm not clamping anything here, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill these holes. All right, with that, I'm going to lay the board on top to where we create what is called an I-beam. So if you look at it, it got its name because it looks like an I-beam. Of course, this isn't screwed in yet, so it's not straight. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and throw those 3 screws into it, and I'll show you what the I-beam looks like whenever it's done. All right, so now we've got our I-beam symmetric on both sides. So now we're ready to start attaching the legs. And this is gonna be the step that you wanna take your time and make sure you do it right. The way it works best is if you've already got a Sawhorse built, or if you've got a pickup truck or ledge. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use this one right here, just because I've got it built. So you can see it's a little bit there. All right guys, just really quick, I'm gonna show you how these legs are gonna attach. This is not how I'm actually gonna attach them, I just wanna show you what it'll do. Basically, the top edge of this is gonna be flush with this 2x4 that's the middle of the I-beam, and you're gonna slide it up and make a mark. So basically what you're going to do is 1 screw here, 1 screw here, and 1 screw here to hold it into place. But what I find works best is if you pre-drill these holes and then you line it up and we just put the top screw in all of them, and then we can adjust the legs to make sure it's perfectly level with the ground, and then we'll drill in the bottom 2 screws. Because by leaving these 2 bottom ones out for now, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room in case something wasn't perfectly cut right. So that's a key thing to remember is if you put all the screws in nice and tight, if anything is off, you're gonna see the difference. But if you leave the bottom 2 screws out, then we have the opportunity to fix it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pre-drill that top hole. I'm gonna go ahead and drill these next 2 holes, but I'm not gonna insert the screws yet. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do that later once the top screws are put in. So let's go ahead and take these 4 boards and we'll put all the screws in. That way we're ready to go when it's ready to start. So we're gonna lay it on its side like this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna slide the board in to that top groove and slide it all the way to the edge. Push it in as tight as we can, drill. And the reason why we do that is we wanna make sure that it is in the right spot where we can get traction with the screw. Typically it's about a 1 inch down from the top, but it's best just to go ahead and make that mark. And then we're gonna go ahead and screw that one in. And we're gonna do the same thing on the other end. So instead of having to switch out the bits twice, let's just go ahead and quickly put it on this side. line it up. Drill the hole. So we're good and we're all set up. So with that, I can go back and I'm gonna go ahead and drill those bottom holes. And what we're gonna try to do is line it up as close as we can to where the board is touching the bottom of the I-beam to where we get the most amount of screw into that bottom board. And then back to this board to do that as well. All right, now that that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and switch out the bit and drill in the top screw. So again, top of the board in, slide it towards flush with the middle of that I-beam so you get a 1-inch in cut from the edge, and screw it in. It's okay if it's a little loose right now. We're gonna come back and we'll tighten all these screws later. Right now, we just want them on to where we can lay it on the ground to make sure we get a nice, flat, level surface. All right, now we've got those two on, we're gonna flip it over. And we're gonna do the same thing with the other 3 boards. Not 3, 2. There's only 2 legs per side. First, we're gonna lift this thing down. As you can see, it's very wobbly still, but we're gonna pull these guys out and make sure we've got a nice sturdy surface, because just in case one of the legs was a little long, doing it this way will really help push the legs into the ground to give you a nice solid surface. But if you were to just screw it in, if this eye was slightly cockeyed because it was a little long or you screwed it a little crooked, you wouldn't know that it's not level, and then you'd go to set this thing down and you'd get that wobbly chair effect. The way I like to make sure we keep this thing nice and solid, handy dandy bag of sand, and just push it down and set it on the table. That's gonna help keep it nice and tight as I go back to screw in those screws. And these screws are gonna go in really easy because I already pre-drilled these holes. So we're just gonna come in here. So you see, it's keeping it nice and tight, and I don't have to worry about if it's cockeyed at the end. So with the sand, it works, or you can just have somebody hold it. But just because I'm down here by myself doing this, I want to use that bag of sand. So, remove the bag, and as you can see, no wiggle whatsoever. And the cool thing about these is, at the end of the day, when you're done using them, you just come over here, grab them, and they stack nice and neat on top of each other. Slide that guy over. So voila, we've got 2 stackable table saws. So the key things to remember is try your best to make all the cuts exactly at 32 and 30. Now, if you want a longer one, you can make it longer. That's not gonna affect it, but the total length of each board needs to be the same. So you don't want one being 30 and then another one being 30 and a quarter, because then you're gonna get a wobble. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna cut up those other boards off camera, I'm gonna build the other Sawhorses, and whenever I come back on, I'm gonna show you guys the step that we didn't do on these ones, because these ones are gonna be for the garage, those ones are gonna be for upstairs. And I just want something I'll cover in this top board to make it a little bit softer on the wood and anything that I've already finished. I don't wanna scratch my finished surfaces whenever I take them from the garage upstairs. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna coat those with a soft surface, that way we can get a better finish. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the 2 boards that look the flattest and nicest, I'm gonna wrap them in an old bath towel. And what that does is it basically gives us a smoother surface that I don't have to worry about scratching a finished surface on. All right guys, we're back. I just went and took a quick lunch break, but now I wanna show you guys how to make something a little bit more cushioned. And the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna be using an old bath towel, and we're gonna cut it in half. So you got one long strip here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna lay it on top of these old boards. And what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna take the edge, the cut edge, up and over, and we want it to line up with 2/3 of the way through the board. That way it's completely covered by the 2x4 that's gonna create that I-beam joist. So, making sure it's over. If it's a little long, it's fine, you can cut it after we're done. So don't worry about getting it perfect right now. Yeah, that looks pretty good there. So we're gonna flip that over, and we're gonna start with the seamed side first because that's gonna be the hardest to hide. And what we're gonna wanna do is pull it, and then we're gonna staple it in place. So if you've got an industrial strength staple gun, it'll work great. I'm just using a regular Staples brand stapler to show you that it doesn't need to be strong. This is just trying to get it in place and hold it in place while you get ready. So what we're gonna do, pull this down, staple, pull it down, staple. And we're just gonna work our way down. 4 or 5 staples per side is all it's really gonna take to hold this thing in place. And then on the end, we're gonna wanna cut it about 2 inches from the end. All right, perfect. And it just so happens it lines up pretty much perfectly with this rib detail. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off. That way it doesn't get too fluffy on here. The best way to do this would be, of course, to measure out the dimensions, cut it perfectly, and have somebody sew it, and then slide the 2x4 into it and just seam up one end. But I can't sew, so we're gonna go ahead and do it this way. Works perfectly fine. But the key thing to remember is when you're cutting this, you want to try to cut off as many of the seams as you can because those are thicker and it's not going to let the 2x4s lay flat and it will cause issues with wobbling in the end. So now that that's cut off, we're going to go ahead and fold this guy up, kind of like you're folding a Christmas present here. But for those of you that are really good at folding Christmas presents, this is going to be a breeze for you. I can't fold a Christmas present very well, so it's all going to be up in here. So let's go ahead, and that side looks good. But the most important thing is make sure you don't have any exposed wood that can scratch your end product. So as long as the top's covered, you're pretty much good. So we're gonna go ahead and fold this over, tuck that in. Perfect. Let's go ahead. Ooh. Knock myself out, no big deal. Now that that's cut, we're good to go ahead, peel this down, hold it nice and tight, and throw another staple in it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and throw a couple across the top here, because this is gonna be the side that is down, so it doesn't really matter if we put staples. And then this, we're just gonna pull up, over, and keep it as tight as we can. This is the one we wanna make sure is tight, because that's gonna tighten that front face that we're gonna be placing stuff on too. So just pull it up, over, staple, staple. Don't be afraid to go a little heavier on the staples because this is going through 2 layers, so there's not much holding it there in place. And now let's come over here and let's fold this side in. So we're gonna wanna cut off about 2 inches past the board, which just so happens leaves on this side this detail. So we're just gonna go ahead and cut it off. Pull it nice and tight, tuck it up, and then pull this guy over as well. So that's good. So let's go ahead, pulling it as tight as we can because we want this top edge here as tight as possible when we're done. So that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and throw a quick staple here to hold it in place. And just kind of working our way across here. And then this guy can get cut off now. So pulling it tight just to get the line nice and straight. Cut it off. Got a little bit of a tightness there, so I'm gonna go a little bit more. There we go. Tuck that guy in. And in. And this, again, you want it as tight as you can get it because it's pulling this front face nice and flat. This is all going to be hidden in the end, so it doesn't matter how pretty it looks. It just needs to be tight. Tuck that corner in. Pull it tight. Like I said, doesn't matter. All these staples are gonna be covered in a second anyway. Just trying to get this guy nice and flat. So, because this side's gonna be hidden, this is the only side you're gonna see, and that looks nice and clean, flush, and that's what our finished surface is gonna rest on. So, the next step is gonna be taking one of these boards. I've only got deck screws that are 2.5, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna countersink in the screws so I get that full extension in. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll be right back. And I got this one counter board. I still gotta do one more counter board, but what I wanna show you guys is how we're gonna line this up. So we wanna make sure it stays nice and flat. Now that's flipped over. And we're gonna have to visually line this up because we can't really mark on this. And we need it to be as straight as possible. So just kind of using your fingers to approximate where it needs to be, shifting it slowly at first, just lining it up on both sides, using your fingers to kind of be a guide. That looks pretty well lined up. So let's grab a couple screws. That way we have them ready to go. And on the bottom side, we're doing 3 screws again, left, right, and center. So as you see, it picked up, went right in. So I know I'm hitting wood, so that's what we really want to see on this. Same thing on this side. Let's slide it over a little bit. And there you go. You've got your I-beam, and you just continue on the same way as before. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera, and I'll come back and show you the finished product. Thank you everybody for watching. These are the 2 Sawhorses with covers for upstairs so we don't ruin the finishes. And then these are the 2 Sawhorses for the garage. They turned out really great. I'm really happy with them. The only thing I might do if I were to make more of these would be to increase the length of the legs. That way I can get up a little bit higher because I'm a little taller than most people. I'm 6'1", 6'2". So these are a little low for me, but I wanted them all the same size, and this is just what worked with the scrap wood I already had. So let me know what you guys think of these in the comment section below. Let me know if you have any questions or if you guys have any ideas for future videos, because I'm always looking to improve my house and do some crazy projects. So I can't wait to start doing some of these now that we have these Sawhorses to work with. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Let's go ahead and let's get started on our next project. This is DIY Simplified. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know if you guys would like to see plans for this build or any other future builds that we do in the comments below.